Good evening. Welcome to our redistricting meeting today on April 29th, 2015. We have a set agenda, so I'd like to quickly just take a look at the agenda before we continue. For some reason, this blanked out some of my items, but they're on your written piece of paper. We're going to approve the minutes, review the transition plan, review feedback and correspondence, review space needs for Blueberry Hill School. Number 5 is discussion. Should we grandfather rising 4th graders? Should we grandfather siblings of rising 5th graders? If we grandfather rising 4th graders, should we also grandfather siblings of rising 4th graders? Number 6 will be a final recommendation, hopefully to the superintendent tonight. And then number 7, do we need future meetings? We're going to start off tonight with the transition plan because people on the committee last week asked that they wanted to hear what was happening with the transition. They felt that was important to have that background knowledge before they could discuss whether or not students would be grandfathered. So for that reason, we're going to begin with the transition plan. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Donna Hutton.
Did you want to do the minutes first?
Oh, I'm sorry, approval of the minutes. I'm sorry, thank you. Let's approve minutes and then do the transition.
I've got just a general...
Can we have a motion so then we can
Could
have
I
the
have
discussion?
a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Who was second? I'm
Katie
sorry.
Gerard, second.
Katie, thank you.
Okay. Discussion?
my name is spelled with an S, Elizabeth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all.
Please forgive me.
That's it. Throughout the whole document, I won't go through the pages.
I will go back and fix that. I do apologize.
And I'm pleased to be sitting here tonight.
I have only one tonight on page 7. 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down. I'm sorry if my wording implied that I would retract or rescind my motion, but I'd like to, I didn't use those words, so I'd like to strike the sentence that says Michelle was willing to rescind her motion, that sentence, and then the sentence that said Michelle again repeated that she's willing to change her previous motion and vote.
I'm sorry, I must have the wrong page.
Well, maybe I numbered it wrong. I think it's 7, the page starts with should be grandfathered.
Okay, that's 6. I'm sorry. That's okay.
It's probably my fault, sorry.
You were saying
so go
on-
down, it begins with Janet read
Okay.
wording, 1, 2, 3, 4
So
paragraph.
Michelle was willing to rescind her motion?
Yeah, if you would strike that and
Sure.
strike Michelle again repeated that she is willing to change her previous motion. And if
Okay.
you could just say
I'll strike
that-
both of those.
Yeah, and I could, if you want what I did say, I could give that to you. It's
Sure.
just, I apologized for having put that on us, that motion on us, and I am happy to abstain when I need to abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay.
As amended.
As amended, Armin, thank you.
Okay.
Katie, you'll second that? All right.
I'm just going to abstain because I haven't had a chance to review them.
Okay. So,
Okay, so all in favor of approval of the minutes as amended? Okay.
can I have this side up again? I'm sorry, I'm doing an actual count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, thank you.
Anyone opposed? All abstaining?
And one abstention. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I would like to note before we begin the transition plan that Alex has put a handout at your seat. He did ask if he could present tonight, and I said no because I would like us to stick to our agenda that was already pre-planned. These are Alex's opinions, and they were written by Alex, so please note that there is a handout at your seat, and they are the thoughts of Alex Matreski that he'd like to share with you.
We don't have any over here.
I have it.
It says redistricting committee, my redistricting meeting, and then there's a second one, redistricting committee. Okay? So please note these are Alex Matreski's thoughts to share with you. Okay, Donna, so we're going to pass it off to you for the transition.
Good evening. Some of what I'm going to share with you are things that I've shared at the last meeting, but we pinned down some dates, and I'm going to provide a little bit more detail about the transition plan. So first of all, I want to share with you our vision. This is a shared vision of the elementary principals and all of the stakeholders involved in the transition. We believe it's a responsibility of leadership to develop and facilitate a transition plan that supports students and families throughout the transition period and beyond. We believe Blueberry students will thrive at center given appropriate support with engaging opportunities to help them adjust to their new learning environment. We will approach the change with our students in this celebratory and positive manner, knowing students take our lead. We believe building teams who thoughtfully focus on students' needs is the key to our students' success. We're going to look at transition from 3 different perspectives: for our students, for our families, and then some of the leadership work that needs to be done and has already been started. First of all, for our students, some very specific plans. We're going to send a welcome letter to incoming students. It will be mailed May 13th. This date is based on the school committee's decision. This is all proposed, again, based on what the school committee decides on May 11th. It would be mailed May 13th. I would visit Blueberry Hill with welcome gifts from the center community. I would want to go for a first visit the week of May 11th, and then a longer visit on May 28th. Students would be bused to center, and there would be welcome activities and a picnic on the green on May 29th. Students would receive letters from center school pen pals. We're going to try to make sure that their pen pal is from their grade level so that they perhaps could have some ongoing correspondence and maybe some play dates before school begins. We will have our adjustment counselors from both Blueberry Hill and Center available as needed. And that would be teacher and parent referral, and that will be ongoing throughout the entire transition period and also into next year if needed. During the summer, we would like to have a new family social, which I always do anyway for new families. It'll just be larger and a much bigger celebration. That date to be announced. We're going to share with Blueberry students a virtual tour of Center School. Our technology integration specialist with our 5th grade team is putting together a special Center School sighting. And it's going to be a welcome video, and they're actually going to go through Center and give them a little bit of a virtual tour through a video before they come for that visit on May 29th. Our transition for our parents. We would like parents to receive placement input letters on May 22nd and have them returned to us as soon as possible. There will be a parent welcome, meet and greet, a building tour, and a question and answer with me and with Center School staff on June 3rd at 6:30. And we will plan an additional day if our Blueberry Hill families feel that's needed. We're going to assign buddy families to incoming families based on grade level, and they can be go-to families for the Blueberry Hill families for any logistical things or anything at all that they think they might need help with. Maria Kotoski, our special education supervisor, will contact special education parents for an introduction to her and just have an initial conversation with them the week of May 11th. I'm the 504 coordinator at Center School, so I'll be contacting the 504 parents with an introduction and a phone conversation the week of May 11th. And again, there will be more meetings, but that will just be an initial introduction. We're going to coordinate and schedule special education transition meetings. Blueberry Hill parents of special needs students will meet our special education supervisor, Maria Kotoski, the special education teachers, and that will also include Megan, special education supervisor at Blueberry Hill, well, assistant principal, AP at Blueberry Hill. Incoming families are going to be encouraged to set up meetings with me or with any staff members to address questions and concerns, and that'll be ongoing throughout the entire transition period. And then we'd like to develop and share a walking map for new families, because I've noticed in some of the correspondences that families are interested in the walking route, so we'll have that developed for them. The leadership work that has already started, our special education supervisors have already, it's not plan A to us, it's families and it's children with stories that we're beginning to take a look at and get to know, and Maria's sharing a lot with us about her families. So we need a transition team established at Blueberry Hill and Center that includes the principal, the adjustment counselor, the nurse, the special education supervisors, and teacher representatives. There will be placement meetings with school transition teams to review the parent input forms, the teacher input forms, and all the data benchmarks that we have on each of our students. We're going to establish email and contact distribution lists to be included in all center, school, and PTO home and school correspondence. We'd like that to happen as soon as possible so that our new families can begin to see what's happening at center school and again begin to establish a home with us. Transition teams going to be established to assist with social events. So this transition team will be a little bit different than the academic one that I talked about before. This will be specific. It will be with me, PTO members, community members, teachers, and school council members. And we'll be looking at all those social events and seeing if we want to add some things aside from the things that we already have planned. And I just want to mention that our center school special education supervisor and 2 of our special education teachers worked at Blueberry Hill. So for many of our families, they're going to be familiar faces, both for the students and the parents. I have building logistics that I've already started to think about. We have to repurpose spaces so that all our new grade level classes are in the same area. Right now, we don't want any split. If I end up going from 3 to 4 sections, I want to make sure that those 4 classrooms are together. That collaboration is really important, and we don't want them separated. So we're starting to walk around and doing a lot of thinking about where we're going to put the classes. I have staffing decisions to make. I've already started. We have some postings up already. The interview process has already started. I have some teachers retiring, so I'm developing a pool of candidates not only for the teachers who are retiring, but for some of the possible new sections at center school. We have to coordinate the preschool move, and that will involve the preschool coordinator, and Neil and I will be taking a look at that. And we have to order classroom resources as needed, desks, chairs, and I've already have an inventory complete on that, so I have an idea of what I'll need depending on sections at center. And that's it in short. So, do we have any questions
Or feedback for Donna?
I can share this too. I'll share this with the committee so you have it.
We'll post it online as well
Okay.
tomorrow. Okay. Donna, thank you. I think that's very thorough, so thank you to you and the transition team for being very thoughtful and meeting the needs of what students may be welcomed at Center School and in the fall.
Thanks, Marie.
And spring. Yes.
Sorry, late
Deb.
questioning. Donna, can you speak to, I know I've been asked by a lot of parents, the class sizes that we expect to see at Center with all the incoming students that we're welcoming?
That's coming up next with all our data.
Okay.
We're going to be sharing that with the committee, and you'll be able
Okay.
to take a look at the class sizes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next, I think Michael had suggested that we survey parents to ask if they would be willing to voluntarily go to Center School from Blueberry if given that option. There was 37 respondents out of 61 requests. There were 61 families that represented 82 students that are potentially impacted in Plan A in grades, current grades K through 4. So here are the results of that survey. As you can see that two parents said that yes, they would move their children to Blueberry, while the other the other 35 said they would not move voluntarily. So any thoughts or feedback on that? Michael?
Number of children or number of respondents?
Number of children is
Okay.
down in the chart. Some parents had more than one child. Other data points that have come up, People have asked about the budget sections, what's that's going to look like, so we have more information for you on that. Currently, in this school year, we have 60.5 classrooms in our elementary school. That includes the 17 that are at Wolf Swamp. Projected sections for next year are 58.5, and that's at all three middle schools, and we're going to break that down for you in a minute. Without redistricting, we projected that we would need 58.5 classrooms based on enrollment trends, and with redistricting, we budgeted for 58.5 classrooms. When people looked at the budget, they were correct that they did not see additions to center. But when you looked at those charts we made, we said that we could reduce 4 to 5 positions from Blueberry. We only reduced 2 because we left 2 more there to be transferred to center should the redistricting occur. So the budget reflects 2 teachers at Blueberry that would be moved when redistricting occurred. It's also been asked of us, there were 4.7 teacher cuts in the budget. What were those 4.7 teacher cuts representing? So again, these were our projections made in January. 2.7 teachers represented 2 grade 1 teachers from Blueberry due to a reduction in population and 0.7 reading specialists. It was also a reduction of 1.0 kindergarten teacher at Wolf Swamp based on enrollment, and we also cut the math coach because we're realigning how we present math services using the math specialists in a different way. So those are what the 4.7 teacher cuts represented. Are there any questions about that? Because I know there's been some confusion. Tom?
My memory might be failing me, and it's been 2 weeks since we last met. But I thought that previously we heard that the budget that was passed did reflect redistricting?
It did. It's just how the business manager did it. When we looked at redistricting, we thought we'd need the 58.5 sections. We left the 2 positions in Blueberry anticipating they would move to center. So we did think about that when we created it. But the assistant superintendent for finance didn't move the positions to center. He left them in the Blueberry line items, but they're there. It's just not clear how they're presented.
Okay.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, so just sort of follow up there. So does that mean that there is no change to the budget if there is no redistricting? Right, because I guess just the way I followed your interpretation, there's 2 teachers, I'm assuming would be a 1st and 3rd grade currently,
Yep.
that they would sort of slide over to center.
We will show you that. We've broken it all down, what it will look like if it's just redistricted with the 5th grade as already decided, what would happen if we grandfather 4th and 5th, and what would happen if we grandfather 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So we can show you that and what the impact on class sizes would be.
Okay, but going back to the original question, if there is no redistricting, there is no need to adjust the budget, or is there any?
Can I?
Marie?
Yes, there are other cuts. Those, she's just reflecting the teacher cut, so the assistant principal was cut in the budget, and we made some shifting of some other positions.
Special
Right there is just
education.
talking about teacher cuts.
Okay, just teachers.
Yes.
Okay.
Tom?
May I ask why certain aspects of redistricting are reflected in the budget and others aren't?
They are in the budget. It's just that when the assistant superintendent for finance and operations did the outlining of the data, he chose to keep it under Blueberry. It wasn't meant to hide anything. It wasn't meant not to be
That's not the implication. I'm just
transparent.
trying to wrap my mind around the budget.
Yep.
So are those 2 teacher positions the only thing left at Blueberry in light of redistricting occurring?
Yes, because special education's been cut, the assistant principal has been cut, and a special education supervisor has been added. So those are the only 2 things that are under Blueberry that would not really be Blueberry. Other adjustments were made for redistricting in terms of special education and administration.
Has anything been shifted to center?
No, because we have a similar population at Wolf Swamp as to what we hope to have at center, and Wolf Swamp has a special ed supervisor, not an assistant principal. When we look at special education, again, that's based on IEPs, the grid of services, so that's done school by school. In the way the budget was developed, everybody has a math specialist, they have a literacy specialist, they have a literacy coach, so that's all been equalized among the 3 schools.
Would Blueberry be getting a special ed administrator?
Yes.
And that's in the budget as
Yes.
it's written now?
Yes. Okay. Any other questions about the budget? All right. Another question that was raised was space at Blueberry Hill. What would happen if we if we grandfathered students in, what would happen with different possibilities. So I'm going to ask Marie to walk you through this scenario, different
So
scenarios.
hopefully you all had a chance to look at this. I sent it on Monday. So it starts off with the existing space, and as we've said at various meetings, in one resource room, I have 4 staff people working in another, there are 3, and a 4th one in a small room. In my reading room, there are 3 staff. The math teacher is in a small room. I have a closet that's 7 by 15 that students use. They're outside consultants. So with grandfathering the 5th grade, what changes, because there are some changes in staff, the first one is a change from the other day, because if you saw the school committee meeting, looking at the students that might be shifting over to center, I am concerned about the number of students with special needs. It's not just about numbers, it's about their services and what students will be remaining. And we still might need some additional special ed staffing at Blueberry. So it could be a 2 to 3 or a partial of a person, so that in one room. The other resource room would have 2. There would be a 3rd resource room with 2 people, only 2 people in the reading room. The ELL teachers would have their own space. Math would be able to move into a bigger space, and I would move students who are in that closet into the math room, which is a bigger room to use. That math room was designed as testing space, which we do not have at Blueberry, so it would have multiple services, because the students are not in that room all day. The closet is used about 11 hours in a week. So that's just 5th graders. Alex?
Yeah, Ms. Price, can I ask you to not refer to that space as closet? That's 105 square feet where it's 101.
I was in there today, it's a closet.
Oh,
It really
it's,
is.
but it's, what connotation of a closet means like a small
It's a school
place.
closet.
But it's 100 square feet. It's a good-sized bedroom that, it's not a closet. Closet is 3 by 3 or 3 by 5.
It actually says storage on the outside of the room still. It was really upsetting, actually, to see today how small the space is and how, I became claustrophobic standing in there talking, actually. It's a closet.
That's the size of a bedroom, 100 square feet. So I'm just saying, we can let's call it something else.
Tom, then Janet.
The room.
Okay, Tom, then Janet.
So over the break and then early this week, I had the fortune of taking a tour of both Center and Blueberry. I want to thank Ms. Hutton and Ms. Pratt for those tours. I saw, to be completely transparent, I saw Center when it was empty, which probably makes a bit of a difference. But Center is a beautiful school. It is a beautiful school. There were a number of times where I asked if we could just not move on for a moment so I could soak in the atmosphere. But it's also a very big school. They've got a lot of space there, a lot of space. And then I toured Blueberry, which I know well because I'm a Blueberry parent and I'm on the council. And even I was surprised at how crowded Blueberry is. There was 2 particular rooms, resource rooms, I believe, that are shared with 4 or 3 instructors. Not a single student in that room was speaking in a raised voice. They were actually speaking in very normal voices or slightly subdued, and the room was loud. I'm a college educator, for those of you who don't know. I'm a college professor. I teach young adults, and if my chair asked me to tutor in a room like that, I would refuse to. It just was not conducive to education. So whether we use words like closets or not, it doesn't really matter. And I hope most of you know that I have no agenda here, and I'm really not pushing for anything. But the room in Blueberry is tighter than I thought. And the room in Center is there. It's there by the gallon full. So that's my personal impression from those 2 tours. And I would ask that everybody on this committee, if you haven't already, please take those 2 tours. I really think it's the only way to give an honest assessment of what we're trying to do here, is to see the room that's available and being used in those 2 schools.
Janet?
I think one thing that, Alex, whether you're offended by us calling it a closet or not, we're talking about rooms that have no windows. We're talking about rooms that were created and intended for storage of supplies and equipment. So having children and teachers working in a room with no windows isn't necessarily fair, and I don't know what else to call it but a closet. So it's not anything personal. It's not meant to be degrading or demeaning. It's just, if you go look at a home and you want to call something a bedroom, it has to have a closet in it. But I don't know how you could call a room without any windows a classroom.
Jenna?
Just clarification, Ms. Pratt. So, and I did study the
Yep.
sheet that you sent home on Monday. So the only change you said was it's 2 to 3 staff and 1 resource firm now. And can you walk me through again, why did that change?
So we're looking at the service hours and the needs of our IEP students and the students that might be redistricted to center, and looking at those needs, because it's not just about numbers, it's about how many hours they get services. And looking at that, we had made a cut in the budget of one special ed teacher. We had added one last year to Blueberry for this school year, and we have some concerns that we won't have enough staffing. It might not be a full-time person, but there is a possibility that there would be some additional person.
Right, and there was some discussion about that at the
School committee meeting,
Right.
yes.
It's again that watch list that's always going, that starts around now and keeps going through the summer when we make adjustments to the staffing and to make sure that we have appropriate class sizes and support for our students.
So can you go, unless there's any questions on that, because that's where we're at right now. So the question was, if we grandfather 4th and 5th graders, what's the space? So in essence, the resource rooms stay the same, one possibly having 3. Math remains in the closet. It's a 10 by 15. It's not a closet, I'm sorry. That one's a 10 by 15 room, no windows. But it does limit the amount of students she can service. But she would go back to that, and I would still need the storage closet that's being used this year used as a space.
Okay.
If we grandfather 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it's the same, because with the redistricting, I would have 4 of each class. What's unique about the grandfathering the 4th graders, that's one of the large classes, so there are actually 5 of that sections of the rising 4th grade. So it doesn't change if you grandfather 3rd, because we're expecting 3 whether we redistrict or not. As you add grades, it just those spaces and people using it, so there would be 3 staff. Because one of the things that it was tricky in doing this is it was easy with the grandfathering in the 5th grade because I know what my staffing is. The more students we keep at Blueberry, then we need to relook at the staffing cuts we made. Because if I'm keeping more students, I gave up some reading, in particular the reading staff. So it's really then kind of hard to judge. So I assumed I would go back to having 3 people in the reading room with the more students that are grandfathered.
Question on that, now that you bring that up. If the more we move back, there's still children moving to center under, the top,
Yes.
everything except for, actually every plan has somebody moving to center. Does that, though, then mean that there's going to be, I guess maybe it was in the last meeting and I just clicked now, that we'll have to have adds to staff because center will need to staff up for those that are moving over, and then Blueberry will also have to stay, they won't be able to benefit from any of the cuts because they'll have bodies still there.
Correct.
Okay.
Alex?
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah.
So last time when we talked about it, the civil rights violation was sort of brought up, which is a serious issue, and I think we need to address it. Can you maybe draw a line and tell us where does that sort of go away and gives you the space?
And I'm not sure I can answer that question till the auditors has come. I might defer to Mark, who is much more familiar. One of the things, and I've purposely done this, is I did speak with somebody from Ludlow just to get what were some of the things that they looked at. One was with the ELL, so that's ELL has their own space, and I've tried to keep that because I know that is going to be looked at. As far as the special ed, do I think they might be concerned with a couple of them, especially if there are 3 people in one resource room? I absolutely do. I'm not sure about the 2. That would be one that I couldn't judge. 3, I do think they're going to question. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or feedback from Marie? Tom?
One of the, I think, tangential things that we kind of discussed and was brought about at our earlier meetings was that we're centralizing some of the special ed programs in individual schools. Is that still correct? Are we doing that, or are we not?
Those are significant special needs students, so they would be in a specialized program where they spend a significant part of their day in a substantially separate program. So that's different than just students who are receiving services in a resource room. So the answer is yes, those programs have increased, but that's very different than just servicing our students who are fully integrated into our programs.
So, every time I ask about this, some people get uncomfortable and there's confidentiality issues, but can we get some sense of what percentage of the overall population at Blueberry would be impacted by those particular programs? And the reason why I'm asking is if we're centralizing those programs anyway, if they make up a fairly large proportion of students, if they were centralized at center where there's room for them, and most of the risk of civil rights violation, risk of litigation, space requirements seems to be on the special ed front. Is there any feasibility to centralizing programs at center where they could be comfortably housed? And would that alleviate any burden on Blueberry?
Yeah. We would then again be in violation of civil rights because you would be making a heavily special education school, and it's supposed to be the least restrictive environment, and we spread them out on purpose so that all the schools have an equal number of programs to keep the schools balanced.
If there's a strong differential in the population enrollments of those programs, could lighter programs be moved to Blueberry and heavier programs be moved to center?
I think that becomes a slippery slope of how do you decide, like, when you look at, like, taking, like, ethics in education and legal issues in education, when we look at least restrictive environments and ensuring that kids have access, I think it applies really across the board to special ed and, like, regular ed kids. I want my kids in a school that's diverse, that has, a diverse community, not only in, like, the way that we look, but how we learn and who we interact with. And saying that we're just going to move, certain programs around,
I would
how do you
agree
make
with you.
that?
I would agree with you completely if they weren't already centralized, but we've gone down that road. And also, Center and Blueberry are as diverse, or perhaps as not
But
diverse
saying, like,
as
then
each other.
moving programs out of Blueberry to make space for, like, the rest of the kids, to me, just feels
I'm talking
like...
about switching programs, so that programs with lighter enrollment go to the school with a higher overall population, and programs with heavier enrollment go to the school with a lower. So I'm not talking about moving programs in one direction. I'm talking about switching program house.
They're about half. They're about the same numbers.
Yeah.
So there could be no gain that way.
That wouldn't really.
Okay.
Not at this time, no.
Sorry.
Okay.
Took so long to get that answer.
Just going back to the civil rights violation and just trying to get a little bit better answer. So looking at incoming 4th and 5th graders, I guess the only thing that sort of sticks out is 2 to 3 staff in one resource room. Is that sort of the area of concern?
And I would imagine that using that storage room as an instructional space would be a big concern as well.
Okay. Now, have we thought, because some of those resource rooms are fairly large, and they're divided now with not walls, but they're divided with file cabinets and stuff. Now, if we would divide those with actual walls, wouldn't that create additional individual private space?
Correct.
Because so for example, when we say 2 staff in other resource, if we divide it, which is a sizable, and they're going to be working that space, so that square footage is appropriate. My point is, if you put a wall, now you sort of minimize the ratio of number of teachers in that room or in that space, right?
Yes. I'm understanding you correctly.
You'd want to make sure there's egress that's appropriate with that number of students in a room, having 2 doors, things like that. But I think the other issue is there would be 4 empty classrooms at center, and why would we be building and still putting students into smaller spaces when we have 4 empty classrooms at another school?
To prevent redistricting, but minimize redistricting. But it's a small cost to avoid civil rights and still achieve some of the goals that we've set.
Any other thoughts? Okay. Next, people are asking specifics about what enrollment would look like next year. The enrollment data that you're looking at on this slide and the next slide is what enrollment would look like next year proposed on these are the numbers of students that would be in K through 5 at Center. If you take a look at the very last column, it gives you the class size and the number of sections at each school. And again, this is, we took the most recent data now to come up with the projections for next year. Janet?
And just to mention as well that these numbers do reflect the out-of-neighborhood students, which is the Metco, the parent request,
School choice,
all of those students as well. So
Staff children.
we're no longer using raw data. We're using actual factual numbers since we've gotten it down to a single neighborhood plan that we're looking at.
Student choice can still change between now and next year. Each one is looked at individually, so people might be moving if they're currently in school choice now.
These numbers were based on, Marie?
So these are current numbers as of today. And so I think what's important, if some of you are looking at those numbers and might be concerned about fourth grade, when we did the projected enrollments in January, those numbers were different. I think Marie's going to talk about watch lists that we have, because we obviously are concerned about 23 in fourth grade as well. So,
Yeah. If you take these sections, and the next slide is blueberries, again, you can see the last column gives you the projected class size and the number of sections. This is what's budgeted for right now. We have a watch list running where we have 3 classrooms on it. When you start to get to 22, 23, they're on our watch list, and we've already had discussions around that. We have a running list going. Again, we make those adjustments when the summertime comes, but that gives you a sense, again, with the out-of-neighborhood students at their current schools, and this is the most recent data that we have. Alex?
These numbers are slightly off from my numbers, but they're in the ballpark in the handout that you guys have. So I guess a couple of things that I did wanted to point out. One is, I guess, 2nd and 4th grade in Blueberry, the average class size will go up from what it is today, right? Because you sort of don't have that shown here, but it goes up. Just
Well,
because
these are the most recent numbers. This is the accurate data. This came right out of our
but he's comparing
database.
it to my class size this year.
Yeah, I was just, I guess what you're not indicating is there is class size that goes up. I guess some parents in Blueberry feel like redistricting happens and class sizes are going to be lower, which is not the case. They're going to go up.
They'll stay within our normal range.
Oh, I'm just saying they're going up. Because, for example, you're moving 16 rising 2nd graders, so let's say that class is 20, 4 of those 20 would have to remain in Blueberry, which would be added to the remaining 4 classes. So you have 1 student per class being added. And that does not include any children remaining from special needs or grandfather or any kind of siblings, because as soon as you do that, then the numbers start to rise even further, the average size in Blueberry, because you're sort of limited there because you need to create the space under this proposal for the 2nd and 4th graders that are going up.
Fourth grade does not go up compared to...
We're talking past each other. Current 1st and 3rd grade?
Current first is 19 students.
Yes, so it would go to 20.
So that grade, I see what you're saying, the grade that's moving up. Got it.
The class size there, and the
Is
current
right,
3rd
20.
grade
All right,
goes
and then the
up.
3rd grade is at 19, it would stays the same. I have 2 classes at 20 and 3 at 19 in current 3rd grade.
But current.
But Alex, your point is well taken.
Yeah.
If people are under the misconception that class size is going to go down to 14 or 13, it's not. It's balancing classes at both schools. So your point is well taken. The classes will stay within that normal range. It won't mean the class size is going way down. Okay? Elizabeth?
But at Center, class sizes actually will go down for some cases, because I know my daughter's in 1st grade, so she's part of that population. I mean, the population is 1, 3, 5. Everyone has their kids every 2 years apart, so there's a lot. I mean, those are the grades, and it's natural. So my daughter's in 1st grade now, and she has all their classes. I have 22 kids, and they're bursting at the seams. But next year, she would have 20. So actually bringing kids over from Blueberry would lower our, because we'd have that more kids to lower ours. So just a different way of looking at it as well.
While we're on Center numbers, Then the third grade,
The current third grade, I just want to make.
current third grade
Okay.
at Center, currently has a class size of 19. It would go up to 23.
Correct.
We have 18 because there'd be 4 sections.
Okay,
No,
but then the...
Not the
rising
fourth
fourth
grade.
graders.
Oh, the rising 4th grade, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yes.
That's on our watch. That's why it's on our watch.
But if
list.
that happens, then you have to hire a new employee.
Yes.
So that's cost. That's a new teacher, I don't know,
Right.
$100,000 or so as a cost of redistricting. So
Correct.
we just need to, I don't see that cost here.
Can I apply for that job? It's a lot more than I make in college.
I'm just saying, no, but with benefits and everything else associated with it, it's within ballpark of things. Just throw a round number.
With or without redistricting, we incur this every summer. So this is part of what happens every single year. Again, we're looking at data in January. You see the changes from January to April, and there'll be changes again April and July when we sit down in August, make those final decisions.
Fair enough. Just wanted to point out that that could be cost that's not highlighted here, that is likely.
Okay, Tom, Michelle, then Jenna. Tom?
So I think I've asked this before, and I understand why you don't want to answer, but I'm going to ask you, if you could, to answer it. What class size will you not go over?
Oh.
If you could make a promise to the community.
I never make a promise
I
because I
understand. I'm
can't
asking
with
you
the
to.
budget, but I'll tell you, when I see an elementary class size, let's start with the little ones, because I look at K1, 2 very differently than 3, 4, 5. When I see K1, 2, the kindergarten ratio, there are 2 adults in the room. There's a teacher and an assistant. So for kindergarten, I start watching when we get to 20, 22. All right, but when you get to 3, 4, 5, they can handle a little bit more. But definitely when they get to 23, that's when I'm saying, okay, we're at a critical point right there. But those are the numbers that we've always tried to hold to. But if suddenly all 3 elementary schools have 23 at the 5th grade, we might hold at 23. It has happened. Our middle schools are a different ballgame. The numbers go up there. But for me, 23 would be huge. But at the younger grades, it's less than that.
So based on that, there must be a number that you know you wouldn't surpass.
I can't make that promise, Tom. I know you want it, but I can't.
Okay.
23 for me is the critical number for 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Kindergarten, again, because they have 2 adults in the room,
No, I
22 is a critical number for me. And then for, 1st and 2nd grade, I'm looking at maybe 18 to 20. So, but we're always looking at enrollment all through the district and balancing that. Armand?
The financial reality is it really isn't up to you. I mean, we are constrained by the budget of the town and by town meeting. So from her professional, educational professional, we may not want to go past X. And the LEA contract also stipulates what we cannot go past. It does, in reality, it's the budget that constrains the number of teachers you can have in a system. And you see systems out there with 27, 28, 29. I mean, it's not Long Meadow, and that's not what we as a town have come to expect, or I don't think we would ever support. But in reality, she makes those decisions every summer based upon what we can do in a budget. And if you have to add another teacher, you're going to have to cut someplace else. And what is that, and where is it?
But there is a precedent in this town, a precedent on Blackboard, that it seems as though when the district asks for another line and can demonstrate why they need it, that line is granted by the town.
And within our budget, we prioritize the number of retirements. We save that money to make sure we have money in the summer to hire. We also try to make sure that if I had a choice between asking principals to cut back on supplies or technology and had to put a teacher in, we'd do that. Because for us, elementary class size is a priority. And I think if you look at our history over the past 5 years, that has been a commitment that we've really held to. We've added staff at elementary, we've kept class sizes. I promise to let Michelle, Jenna, and then we'll go back to Armand and Janet. Michelle?
Just a quick question. Do any of these new enrollment numbers factor in the exceptions that we talked about at the Monday meeting?
What exceptions?
Anyone on an IEP or with specific needs that would...
They don't yet, but again, there'll be individual plans. Many of them won't need to be grandfathered in, but if they do, they would be, and they'd again be part of that watch list again. But no, they only count.
These don't have
they only
any of those
include what we
numbers
know
in it.
now.
Okay.
Okay. Jenna.
So I was just gonna, so the school choice, the METCO, the staff exceptions, whatever you want to call them. So before, when we looked at numbers, we kind of excluded them, right?
Right.
So now, if I'm looking at, I'm more familiar with Blueberry, but if I was looking at Blueberry, those out-of-neighborhood children are
They're currently in those numbers.
currently in these numbers, like they are going to move if they're so in that zone.
Right.
We did this because people wanted to know staffing, how we came up with the 58.5 sections. So this is to show you how we came up with that and how we're really counting sections and numbers of classrooms that we're going to need, as well as how we came up with the staffing. So we had to put in those numbers and change the data a little bit to show you that.
So if I can ask another question, are we going back to square one with those students, and is everybody going to have a clean slate at the beginning of this, or are we still honoring previous exceptions?
So they have to write a letter every year. So it's a decision that's made yearly for students out in the neighborhood. Now, METCO and school choice, usually
have no
don't say,
choice in those.
but students out of neighborhood that maybe live at Center but come to Blueberry, those are granted on a yearly basis. So those will all be looked at.
There were few, if any, staff children there because of the high enrollment. They have not been placed there. METCO and school choice would definitely stay. That's our town commitment to spread children out, and they would be part of the school. So, but parent choice is an annual review, as Marie said. Okay, we had Janet, then Armand.
One thing I just wanted to clarify, Tom, when you had said that, it seems that the town always will grant the line item that we're requesting. It's not the town. The budget that's voted on at town meeting is our final number. If we choose to, but we as a school committee have the flexibility to move money between line items. So, like Marie was just following up with, if we need to add in an extra grade level teacher, it would be, okay, is there room from teachers retiring and us not hiring at the same level, so there's attrition money, or do we limit the amount of supply money there is? But it's not that the town, I just wanted to clarify, it's not the town giving us any additional money than what is voted on at town meeting. That bottom number stays that bottom number.
Then if that's true, and the fact that the budget that was passed reflected redistricting, have we been wasting our time for the last 8 weeks because we're fixed into a budget that reflects a plan that we have yet to agree on?
No, because we still have the flexibility within the budget to make those adjustments.
But cuts were made based on redistricting. How could those cuts be reinstated?
Whether or not we redistricted, we still had 58.5 sections that we calculated back in January. We did cut in special education and administration. We'd have to make adjustments if the community decided not to redistrict. Armand?
And to clarify, you can always go to town meeting to go beyond the budget. I think Tommy brought up that in recent past, that the town has been very generous with supporting the schools. But in a not so distant past, 2007, the override only passed by 5 votes. And that was on a level service budget. In 2003, option 1C, a level service budget, failed by 4 votes. So you can only go to the well so many times, and we've gone to the well a lot. I think recently there's other priorities in town as well, I think, that you have to balance, such as the new senior center, the DPW is on the block. So I think we as a town have set education as a priority, and we should always do it. I just don't think it's a given that the town's going to continue that positive vote.
And I have to say, we manage the budget well. We also know that there's a private school closing in town, and that we're recruiting to bring students back to our middle schools. And if we do that, that again will be a substantial cost savings that will come back to us in the budget that we can use elsewhere in the district, particularly for elementary support.
Can I just jump in right before you, Alex, so I can just follow up with that? So that private school that's closing, it services special needs children, correct? So then these numbers that we have here with that closing, if they don't save their school and aren't able to go elsewhere, are just going to increase?
No, they're middle school students.
Oh, they're all middle school?
Yep.
Okay. Well, what about the elementary school kids there?
There's only, I think, 2.
Oh, okay.
Very few
Okay.
that would be in the elementary school.
Okay.
From that school.
Okay, never mind then.
And the students that I'm talking about, we're looking at middle school level.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have, and then all of a sudden, more bodies
No.
going back into these rooms that are already overcrowded to begin with.
No. Alex?
I guess, so,
From this discussion, I guess what I've sort of concluded, one thing I'm glad you point out, Mrs. Doyle, is that, and you pointed out at the public forum, is that this is a $30 million budget, and there's always room to sort of maneuver, and that's how you've been able to add some sections toward the end or a few weeks before the school's session starts. I guess if you go back one slide, in terms of teachers, redistricting, maybe 2 more slides, one back, further back. Maybe one more. It's the 59.5, wherever that was. It's just the sections, whether you do 58.5, sections without or with redistricting, the sections are identical. So to me, maybe, so correct me if I'm wrong, cost is whether we redistrict, and then potentially need to hire a teacher at center because we're at 23, so that's sort of the bubble number that if anything happens, that you would have to hire a teacher. Or if we don't redistrict, you may need to add some sort of a reading specialist or allocate some time, because, you know, I asked you, Ms. Pratt, at one point, how can you eliminate 2.7 teachers? I guess it's just allocation of time.
We have a 0.7 part-time person, so.
So in my mind, I don't see any cost difference in the budget within redistricting. Sort of washes out one way or another. And in a $30 million budget, $50,000 to $100,000 is not, I mean, it's just less than
Where'd the 100 go? Now you're down to 50. Now you're insulting me.
Well, I'm saying if you do redistrict, then you need to allocate a reading specialist or something like that. Just, but those are the numbers, 50 to 100. That's, even that's 0.1, less than 1%, less than 0.5% of the total budget.
For me, this isn't about money. It's about balancing and providing the best education for our children, the best experiences, to have them in class and school environments where it's manageable. It's not about the money for me. We're sharing this with you because these are questions that have come up during the process, and I'm happy to share this information with people.
So just final point on this, I guess it's safe to assume that redistricting doesn't save money for the budget in general. You can't say like it's grand savings.
It would be minimal. It would be minimal.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Okay. Did I forget anybody? All right. So then we took a look at what would happen if we redistricted and included siblings. And here you can see that with siblings, the class sizes do change a bit. Let me just look at these numbers. Again, if you look at the last column, you go, you keep 15, kindergarten, 15 students per class, 3 sections. It goes from 17 students per section, 3 sections, to 18 in 3 sections. It goes from 21 students in 4 sections to 22 sections and students in 4 sections. It goes from 17 students in a section in 4 sections to 18 in 4 sections, and it remains at 19 students in 4 sections for the 4th graders, and 22/4 for the 5th graders. So then what happens at center?
Question on this
Sure.
one. The third column over, it's redistricted Plan A with 5th graders and siblings. I'm thinking the numbers are wrong because they're identical to the Blueberry enrollment numbers of just 5th graders.
Okay.
It looks like it should be 13 instead of 10. 8 or...
Which one are you on?
I'm
You're
on
right,
the-
Elizabeth. I messed that up in terms
Okay.
of...
That number just it carried over and it's not correct, right? I just want to make sure that... I think your class size is correct, comparing
Right, the
Blueberry...
class size and the new projected are correct.
correct.
That column in the middle...
To show how many move is wrong. It should be lower.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was not...
I'm sorry.
No,
All right. And you have these papers in front of you, so I'll give you a minute to take a look at them rather than me reading to you. The next several slides show you what happens if we grandfather just the 5th grade, if we grandfather the 5th and 4th graders, if we grandfather 5th graders and siblings, if we grandfather 4th, 5th graders and siblings, etc. So I'll give you a minute to look at that data. And Marie, when we're done, I'm going to ask you to speak to the impact. Michelle?
I have a question on the page before that. Can you just, the stuff we were talking about on Monday in relation to the number of sections that we have under the, if we don't change the enrollment at either school versus if we change the enrollment at either school. So according to my math, if we divide the projected enrollment of students by, when you use 20 as an average class size, we had 22 sections at Blueberry, 17 sections at Center, which equals 39 sections. Now, under the current, if we change redistricting as we're describing in those two slides with Plan A with Blueberry fifth graders, we would have 22 sections at Blueberry, 19 sections at Center, which equals 41 sections. So there's a staff change of 2 more, if you're looking at Blueberry and Center, we've added 2 staff positions if we do it based on a 20 student ratio. So do we have, and my concern is, it seems like we needed to add 2 under this proposal versus take any staff away.
We have the 2 at Blueberry that are in the budget but not assigned to a class at Blueberry that would be rolled over to Center.
Okay.
So that's, I think it was confusing, Michelle, because the way it was in the budget, those 2 positions were listed under Blueberry and they should have been listed under Center.
Okay. And the special ed did not get cut? None of the special ed?
One special ed teacher did get cut from Blueberry based on the
that was
plan to
servicing
redistrict.
students or supervising, because the special ed...
A special education teacher.
Okay.
But what's happened with the more information we have that it's Plan A and that the 5th grade is grandfathered in, it's only about 7 students on IEPs that are remaining that could potentially be redistricted, and it may even be less depending on what decisions are made tonight. So, so that we are finding we have more special ed students, we're probably going to have to add a special education teacher back in.
We had
That's
taken
on
it
the
out and
watch
we'll put
list.
it back because
Right.
that's... Okay.
That's on the watch list. Because what we've seen now is based on keeping the 5th graders in Plan A, we have more special education students than we anticipated. So that's definitely a place that we think that we're going to be adding a teacher back in.
But overall, since the students are all the same between the 2, wherever they go, there's still this population of students that need to be serviced in the special ed community. So is the staff for that, it's not being cut, there's no cuts other than the one you said, but that's getting put back in, so we'll still have overall the same number of specialists?
They will have the number of special ed teachers based on the IEPs in the grid, because one student might only need help in ELA, and another student might need it in ELA math and science. So we'll look at the IEP plans, and we'll base the staffing on how much servicing we need to provide for the students.
Okay.
Tom?
If I followed Michelle correctly, once we start looking at district numbers, and were you totaling up total sections across the district?
I was
or
just
between
paying
Center
attention to
and-
Blueberry and Center, just because that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
So if Michelle calculates a net gain of 2 sections after redistricting, the 2 faculty that you're talking about being moved, that's a net wash, that's a net of 0.
There's not a net gain, because we did count them out. We had 60.5 last year, we're down to
Okay.
58.5 this year. And we calculated again carefully today, and we've been doing it over the past week. So it is down to 58.5. If you take a look at what we added at totals here, Wolf Swamp has 17 sections.
Okay.
So together, the 3 schools do equal 58.5 classrooms.
And if I followed Michelle, you use the number 20 as your class. So that might shift a class or two
Okay,
section.
okay. And another unrelated question. If I understand these charts correctly, the second column, that's the column titled Projected Enrollment of Students, that's without redistricting, right? That's the comparison column? That's if there's, so why are those numbers different in the three different tables that refer to Blueberry? It seems to me those numbers should not be changing if that's the projection of enrollment without redistricting. In second grade, there's 98 in one table, 101 in another, and 104 in the third. And there's 57 in kindergarten, 56 in kindergarten, 58 in kindergarten.
That's
Shouldn't those
because of the
numbers?
siblings. This
This
is
is-
with their siblings.
But this is without,
Post redistricting, depending on whether they're grandfather fifth, grandfather fourth and fifth,
I-
and siblings.
is post the fourth column? I think isn't it grade, where we stand now, how many
Right.
students would be moved, and what would happen if they're moved?
I think
Maybe I
that-
misunderstood.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah, it
no,
was the first
I get
column.
it.
Yeah, I agree with Tom.
Yes, I think that's, yes, it's wrong.
I think what you did,
So then you'll need to explain to me how you want the table done.
I think you added to the first column, the siblings in.
Yes.
And then what's hard is because the redistricting numbers are wrong because you forgot that we didn't delete those kids, and then it would be a smaller number.
The final numbers are correct. Those are the numbers that I did subtract or
Right,
add from.
right.
So what column should we be looking at?
I think you have to not be looking at the number of students redistricted. Those numbers are wrong as
Right.
Elizabeth said.
To look at the new projected number and then the class size and section number. The last two.
Yeah, because projected enrollment of students is before redistricting at all. That's what Blueberry
Right.
would look like
So
next
those
year,
numbers shouldn't
status
have
quo.
changed.
The next one is minus how many get redistricted
Right.
equal the new projected, but those numbers
Those
don't work.
Right.
Other than in the first
Right.
one, and they also change
Right.
Right.
from
So
example to
it's-
example, and that, they shouldn't if you should have
That number
the
should stay,
base
yes.
through all the
Right.
examples.
So what I can guarantee you is the new projected numbers and the class sizes and sections are correct. I'll go back with Marie and work on that. Yeah, I was given this at 4
No,
o'clock
no,
this
no, no, no,
afternoon,
I'm
so
just-
I apologize.
Can I, because I was going to say, with all due respect, if the numbers in the first couple columns are, incorrect, I think we really need to check the data.
Well, I can tell you
Okay.
very honestly, I apologize. I've been out of town, and I was given this at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
I get it, I understand it.
So,
I'm
I
just
can
saying,
tell
I
you
think we
that
need to
those-
double check the numbers.
we just need an accurate comparison point. So do you know on the table, I need glasses for everything. The chart that's labeled Blueberry's enrollment, that's the baseline right now. That's, I believe,
Go back up.
two slides up from this one, I believe, Marie. This one. If these are accurate, again, those numbers should never change.
Correct.
So we can
Right.
always compare to that column. B.
Correct.
Are those numbers accurate?
Correct. And that's, I can tell you that I took the new projected and the class size and sections from that one. And so when you see that, if we're grandfathering with siblings, for Blueberry with fifth graders and their siblings, there's no additional kindergarten student coming in, but there are 3 first grade students, there are 3 second grade students, and there are 5 third grade students.
So the
Oh,
pro-
I see how you, okay.
So
I
this
see
has-
your logic.
Right.
I get the logic.
Right, so I took that chart with the new projected number and then added siblings,
And then took them out.
Oh, we went back.
but
Okay.
then took them out in the wrong spot.
But is this projected enrollment of students, so the second column from the left, is that the accurate projection as it stands now for the next academic year?
Yes.
Okay.
So I took in Power School, our database, got our enrollment summary, took any new registered students that I have folders for, and then I even took out a few students who I know are definitely moving.
So we
So
can compare to those numbers?
That, yeah, in Center, Donna did the same thing.
Okay.
So those two charts, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Something else sort of sticks out as incorrect there. The last column, bottom right corner, 84 divided by 4, that should be 21.
So it comes with a fraction, as this happened last time. If the fraction is over 50%, we bumped it up to, so you can imagine that some are
There's no
21,
fraction
22.
there. But there's no fraction.
Okay.
84 divided by 4
yep,
is 21.
But on the others, because you might see that on the others.
That's tough to
Yep.
do that one, yeah. But on that one,
That
it
one,
should be
21.
21.
No, I agree.
And I guess third grade could be 22 with 3, right?
We're dividing into 4 sections. There's still 20.
Right. Could be actually 20. It's really
22.
Two of the classes will have 21, 2 will have 20.
Yeah.
Yes. So so how we did it, so we did it the same way. If it was, okay, 0.5, we just bumped it up to the next one. If it actually, there's one that might be, I'll just use the number 17.3, we kept it at the lower number,
Yeah.
to average it out.
On which one, sorry?
So when you divide, especially if you divide by 3, sometimes if there's going to be 2 classes, say of 17 and one of 18, I kept it the lower number because it was less than 50.
Okay.
If it was above 0.5, I went up to the next number.
Yeah.
Because there will be some class that number, except for, I will agree, 5th grade should be 21.
And third grade, I would say, may stay at 22 students for 3 classes. If we,
Right.
we under the sort of
Yes,
mission that we're
that's
trying to
right.
create
Yes.
space, 22 is
True.
not outside of the realm
Mhm.
of reality, and that should be one less
Yes.
class size.
Yes. The only thing I would ask is, as long as we look at the other 2 schools, and I would say that is 3rd grade would be one that we would look at, knowing what the other 2 schools are at.
One of the things we're trying to do is pick up space
Yeah.
because of rooms. I think it would be very helpful if we knew the projected number of sections for each grade without redistricting. I don't mean
Sure.
to put you on the spot, but could you give us
Yep.
numbers that correspond to the projected?
Kindergarten would be 3. 1st grade would be 3, although that would be on the watch list. 2nd grade would be 5. 3rd grade would be 4. 4th grade would be 5. And 5th grade would be 4.
So you'd gain 2 rooms. Thank you.
And Marie, can you repeat that data is what?
So the question was, how many sections, if we did not redistrict, would I have of each grade?
Okay. Okay. And that was the chart we used last time, okay. All right. Any other
Quick
comments?
questions. Did you do a chart with grandfathering 4th and 5th graders only without siblings? I have a hard time finding that.
Was that not at the last meeting?
Yes, that, you would have that in the last meeting, although it's not the real numbers, but they're not, we looked at the real numbers versus the raw data, there's not much difference. But in the last PowerPoint, with the raw data, we did it just 4th graders without, 4th and 5th without siblings, roughly. And some of the numbers are still are the same. There's a few differences.
Do you want me to call that up?
But
I guess if we're going to be doing sort of a decision or thinking about it, it's good to have that information in front of us, I guess.
so if you go, actually, I think we could do it a different way, Marie, that might be easier.
Okay.
Go back to,
In the current slideshow?
in the current slideshow, yeah.
Yeah.
So, go to Blueberry's numbers. So if you look at 4th grade, take out the 75, you would just do 93 divided by 5. There would be 5 sections. Not that, no, wrong slide. Keep going backwards. That one.
That one.
No, it's to centers, there. So the difference would be, so we would just have to chop, the total enrollment is, you would have 93 4th graders. Because in that one, I didn't do anything with siblings.
Right. So you still gain 2 classrooms under that.
No, because I would have to add a 5th, there would be 5 sections of 4th grade.
Right, but it would be, you would gain a classroom from the 2nd grade, which is 5 sections, now it would be 4. And the
But I have-
incoming 1st grade, if it's 3 grades, and the current graduating is 4 grades, you have a classroom from there.
So if you go to my space list, because I didn't
Right.
factor in siblings.
All right, so let's go back to the space. This one?
Yes.
Okay.
And go, so up top would be what the
spacing issues would be.
I'm just talking about classroom gains in each proposal. If you grandfather only fifth graders,
Right.
you gain 3 classrooms. If you, no?
Yes, because I would split, some of those would be split up.
The fourth graders, the second graders, and the
And the
first
first grade,
graders.
yes.
If you grandfather fourth and fifth graders, you gain 2 classrooms.
Correct.
If you grandfather third, fourth, and fifth graders, you gain 2 classrooms.
Correct.
Again,
Difference, yeah.
Yeah. Janet?
But again, it's not just the number of classrooms that we're gaining, it's the number of total students that are in the building and providing equity across all 3 elementary schools. So it's not just class size, it's not just numbers of classrooms that we gain so that people can spread out at Blueberry, but it's, a difference of total numbers of enrollments is if you're looking, without your grandfathering, you're looking at 402 at Blueberry versus 385 at Center.
But with all due respect, I feel like we are trying to find a compromise solution, and I do feel like every time we try to address space, we then hear about equality, and every time we try to address equality, we then hear about space. We understand that all of these options are in play, but we're trying to do the best that we can for all stakeholders in this process.
Right,
we
and I
can't
don't-
just bring up the counter-argument every time we're addressing the first.
I don't disagree, but I don't think it's fair to just go down the road of expressing, oh, well, you'll gain 2 classrooms, it's fine, we can keep all of these students here, because that was not our mission to start with. And while I can appreciate trying to find a compromise, we also have to look at it as a compromise and think about the other 400 students at Blueberry who right now are not getting the same services that the 350 students at Center and Wolf Swamp are getting.
Katie?
So I think that, to that point, though, it's not just space and it's not just, it's together. You can't, it really is. They really go hand in hand. And when I'm looking at numbers, if the numbers are kind of insane, where if we grandfather everyone and down to like kindergarten siblings, we're looking at 472 versus 298 at Center. And that's saying that's not just space and sort of the idea of equity. It's specials, the PE teacher, the art teacher, the music teacher, strings, everything that. Your kid's just not getting the same access to these services.
I couldn't agree more, and I think they're so intertwined that I think gaining space gains equality and vice versa. I don't like discussing them separately too. I don't like when we address one, we bring up the other. I think they are tied, I agree with you.
So when you start to look at one and then it's, well, what about, so I think it's just a circle that we go in.
Agreed.
Alex?
I guess just a couple of points. I think our mission has sort of changed a little bit since the first meeting, because right now I look at the civil rights violation as the #1 priority that this committee needs to address.
I don't believe
Because
that
it's-
we've been told that the mission's changed.
Well, I'm just saying, in my mind, that's an urgency. It's not. It's just something, at least in my mind, has since starting in March 17 and saying we don't need to redistrict. I'm thinking that now we need to do something, because that's something that's real that this town could be faced. So doing something proactively to address that, I think that's the issue that we need to address, and #1.
It's a civil rights violation, but also whether or not we're cited for something, we are saying that it's overcrowded and we need to do something. Katie, Deb?
So,
Can I just finish my thought?
but I have to say, though, that to me, just saying that the fact that now we have something to call it, there's the possibility of being cited by, I think that the civil rights violation is currently taking place where we're not able to provide the space and equity for these kids. And that, our mission from the get-go was to provide an equitable education across our 3 elementary schools. That doesn't change because we've got a shiny title to put on it. I think that we're still tasked with the exact same thing that we started with.
But
Deb and Sherry?
I can finish my thought. This has been going on for 10 years. The difference has been 110 children. So, that's the reality that we've been letting go on. So now we want to solve this problem overnight. And so I'm just trying to see that we can solve it and find a middle ground where it's not everybody impacted, that we can just find a middle ground, that there is a solution. And by the way, the enrollment data shows that stuff is going to reduce by 100 children in the next 4 or 5 years. So all of this is going to self-correct itself if we're a little bit patient and with children's emotional, minimize impact to children.
But they're
That's the
impacted
issue
every
here.
day by not getting an equitable
And
education.
my child
It
will be
just is.
impacted every day going to a new school. That's the issue.
Okay,
Everybody,
Deb.
65 children will be impacted
Deb,
every day.
Sherry, Armin. Deb?
I think that looking at the numbers, there's definitely that concern between having an audit coming at us and looking at anybody below the 5th graders being grandfathered in. Just in reality with the numbers, I'm concerned that you could have another influx of students, and that if we skimp as small as we can to give you the minimum of 2 classrooms, it takes a very small influx of students to push you over the edge, to put you in a spot where you're now inequitable once again. And I feel for people moving, but to see free and appropriate education not happening throughout the district is for quite a few years now. It's building up and it's building up, and I feel like our real issue we're looking at is whether we can grandfather the 4th graders and not put the district in violation of rights that shouldn't be violated for the last couple years that are beginning to be, and that we could be audited for if we go as skimpy as we can. So I think it's going to come down to right on that line and making a wise decision for our community.
Okay. Sherry, then Armin.
I just like to echo those thoughts. You know, I signed up for this because I was willing to find a redistricting plan that will equitably provide services to all the kids in our town. The space issue, the civil rights thing, that's why we have elected officials and we hire professionals to do this. I'm here to help find a plan that makes it equitable and move on. I'm not here to solve all the problems in all the schools. That's what they get paid to do. So I would hope that we will eventually move this forward, decide whether we're keeping 4th graders and/or siblings, give this recommendation, and be done with this. We can drag it on. We can bring all kinds of problems in from all the schools. That's not really what our job is. Our job is to decide if we can present a plan, concise, and be done with it. Vote and be done.
Armin?
Yeah, and I hear, that this has been going around for 10 years and people have just been ignoring it, and that's just categorically false. I'm sorry that, can't restrain yourself back there, but this is categorically false. We have added lots of services into the schools, including reading specialists, math specialists. We've done a lot of intervention work in the classrooms that have added to the space required within the schools. It's not just about the number of children in the schools. So it's not like everybody just came here and ignored a problem for the last 10 years. And if anybody thinks that, then they're wrong. I agree wholeheartedly with Sherry. Everything she said was just perfect right there. Everybody keeps saying we should hire consultants to hire professionals. We've hired the professionals. We've hired a superintendent. We've elected a school committee. That's why elections matter. That's why you need to pay attention at the voting box every year. Elections matter. And in the end, this is an advisory board who will advise Marie on what she should recommend to the school committee, and they need to do what they need to do and step up and take a vote, yes or no, on what's the best plan for the district, and that's why we elected them. For us to keep on bringing up new things just to distract what is the best recommendation in certain eyes, it just doesn't make sense. To come up with a new reason not to do something, just in my eyes, doesn't make sense. And for that reason, I would move that this advisory committee recommend that we endorse to the superintendent the Plan A with 5th graders only be the plan that be recommended to the superintendent.
I have a motion on the floor that a recommendation to move forward with Plan A with grandfathering only 5th graders. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sherry, second. Open for discussion. Alex?
Just to say a few things. AJ, to your point, when I said 110 on average, That's a fact. Over the last 10 years, if you do the difference on class sizes, that's the fact. So it's not categorically false, but I think what your point we are trying to make is, and I think Mark had sort of brought it up as well, is services have increased over the years, and that's what's caused this issue to sort of get worse. So I understand that, like 10 years ago, it wasn't as bad, but in the last 5 years, services have increased that have added a tax. And so I agree with you on that point. But the issue still remains that it could have been done sooner, or at least started sooner, to minimize the impact. That's sort of been the issue. Second, the biggest frustration that I've had on this committee for the last 6 weeks has been if anybody comes up with any kind of idea outside of this, what you just moved, there was few people on this committee that would jump right at it and try to shut it down. Forgive me, Ms. Robinson, but in the first meeting, I thought you were the assistant superintendent. That's how ignorant I am in regards to who were school committee meeting members at the time. I didn't know because I guess you've been familiar with the plan and you were defending the plan. I thought, and then I saw your address, I said, yeah, sure, you work for the school. My fault that I didn't understand who the school committee members, and that's been the frustrating part, that there is sort of division between 4 or 5 members that are just going with this plan and they raise their hand, and others who are not friends but try to come up with sensible solutions, and that's been the frustrating part. So to your point, it may very well be that we're not going to come up with a proposal, because even if we come up with one, Ms. Doyle can say change her mind and go with a different approach. But anyways, that's the frustrating part of all this.
Other comments? Carolyn?
I just want to clarify, are we talking grandfathering, the motion on the table is to grandfather 5th graders and not siblings? Or is it
The motion says just to grandfather 5th graders.
Okay.
Tom?
So, as I mentioned, I toured Blueberry and I toured Center, and after taking those tours, I can't, in good conscience, vote against this motion. Blueberry is full, woefully full, and Center has the room to accommodate. But this has been such a flawed process, with such a lack of transparency, that I can't, in good conscience, vote for it either. So I'll be abstaining in protest to how we got here, and I would ask that others who agree abstain with me.
For the record, I will be abstaining as well, for the same reasons that Tom just mentioned. This process has been flawed from the beginning, and it's an embarrassment to our town, to the taxpayers, and to the community at large.
I have a quick question before we move forward. You know, like Sherry, I agreed to do this knowing it was going to be a rough road. You know, like my husband told me don't do it, and I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And little did I know. And he was right. I mean, it's not been a pleasant 6 weeks for someone who is not in the least bit impacted. I mean, that's like, I am not impacted. My kids go to Center. I've got a rising 6th grader. I'm not impacted. But what has really worried me is the fact that there seems to be like 2 groups moving here, though. We have the school committee, and there's people going to school committee talking at school committee. And there's stuff coming up at school committee that I'm now running around watching school committee videos to find out what's going on, and there's talking about middle school redistricting and how that's going to happen next year. And I don't understand. I guess my concern is that there's 2 bodies that are concurrently meeting talking about the same thing, and we really are having a non-binding vote of that other group that's still meeting talking about it. So I'm not really sure why we're all here like racking our brains and staying up late and having like people be upset with us when at the end of the day my vote really does not matter one way or the other. So that's...
I always say that this is the second most difficult thing that district has to go through. The first is the death of a child, and the second is redistricting. It's extremely painful because people love their schools. There is no district I know of that has not suffered through this process. There is no district that I know of that has had a process that has worked for them. As flawed as this may have been, my intention was to try and save the pain. I think that the last 6 weeks, you see what I'm talking about. This is a no-win situation. If we do not open it up to get feedback from the community, then we're we're cited for not listening to what you had to say. In opening it up to the communities to make sure that everything is examined, we looked at 5 proposals, we've brought it back to 1. So at this point, I hear what you're saying. I don't know of a way to keep a pain from a community. It is the worst thing, other than the death of a child in a community, that you have to face, so. Tom?
To that point, I want to show and express my respect for you taking the responsibility that you did, but also make the point that the responsibility is not solely yours. The leadership of this district lies in the hands of many, and so others share the burden of this flawed process as well.
Alex?
It's been a tough 6 weeks. And I think the best thing that this committee can do is to not propose anything tonight. And it just, voting against friends or people that we know each other well and trying to do this, we know it's not right. And and that's the other piece, has been just as a parent trying to dig up information, find out information, figure out how all this process was sort of started. And everybody has said what they needed to say. It's just, that's been the other frustrating part. We have elected officials, you're right. Some have been actually elected unopposed. So, and there has been a lot of inconsistencies even within that body as well. And that causes, and then there's middle school. And so there is the rest of the story behind this story that I just feel uncomfortable. And I think this town is smart to recognize that. And it's just fighting against each other because we still need to see each other, Big Y or on the fields, et cetera. And, so that's the issue. And I think that's the only sensible solution here tonight.
Any other comments? All right, this time we have a motion on the floor to proceed with Plan A with grandfathering 5th graders in. And that is the motion on the floor. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay.
717.
Okay. Well, this is a recommendation, so I will take that under advisement as I proceed to make a recommendation to the school committee.
So the motion failed, right?
There's a tie.
No, 50%, so that's 15, so you need to have 8 to carry. You don't have 8, so that motion fails. 771, that's 15 members. You need 50%.
Abstentions don't count. It's a tie. Abstentions don't count. You have a 7-7. There's 7 abstentions.
You have 7 in favor, 1 against, 7 abstaining.
Yeah, the abstentions don't count, so it carries.
It's out of 8, then it becomes out of 8 as opposed to 15, right? Is that Robert's
No,
rules?
you need 8 votes to pass.
You
There's
have
simple
7 and 1,
majority.
that's 8 votes. You're saying,
Simple majority is 8. There is no 8 votes to pass this.
7 were for, 1 against, that's 8 votes.
All votes count. Whether you abstain or not, they count. The majority of this body is 15. That's the quorum.
You're
is
saying you-
15. No.
Abstentions are like you don't vote at all.
So the governing body comes down to 8 people who are willing to vote one way or another. That's what they're trying to tell you. It doesn't matter that if we could have 25 on this board, if 20 decide not to vote, then those 5 people are making the decision. That's what they're telling you.
Correct. Again, Alex and I had a conversation the other day, and whatever decision is made, how do we rebuild the community? Long Meadow is an outstanding community. It's clear in the children that you send to our schools every day. the value around community service and giving and caring for the community is evident. I think, Alex, your comment about neighbors and the way neighbors care for each other. I spoke to one member while this process was going on, and she talked about having cancer and how people from neighborhood A had stepped up and they were bringing dinners every night and caring for her. That's the kind of community this is. And as painful as this process has been, I want people to understand Long Meadow is an outstanding community. We need to rebuild and to regroup. This isn't neighbor about neighbor. This is trying to balance schools, but it's about people that love their home school. It's gone down, some paths where it has gotten nasty. I know, Alex, you've been under attack at times. People offered opinions. People tried to bring forward their best opinions. I want you to know this is an outstanding community and that our focus, once this is done, is on rebuilding. It's about reminding ourselves that we have outstanding children, we have outstanding families, and that we want to do what's best for them. So I thank you for serving on the committee. I know it's the worst thing that I could have asked of you, and I hope that with time that the healing will begin very, very soon for all of us. So thank you. So at this point, I would take a motion to adjourn. Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.